Well, welcome to Debbie's Back Porch. So glad to have you with us. Today we're in the garden and we're going to harvest some dried beans. Yes, dried beans just like you get at the grocery store. And we like to grow a few for ourselves, so I'll show you how we do that. This year I planted some bush beans from grocery store beans, Cannellini beans. You see down there is the oldest bed. We're going to harvest those today. And this bed's not quite ready for harvest, but you can see that it's dying. So here are 3 different stages of green beans, and green beans are just so versatile. You can eat them green, probably a little younger than this. This is a little more mature than you would usually pick for green beans because they've already got beans forming. But these are still pretty green, and when you pick them green, you just break them up and cook them that way. Everybody loves those. These are what we call shelly beans. They are beyond the green bean stage, but they're still soft and fresh inside, and you can cook beans like this too. You can shell them just like you would peas, and the bean inside is still soft. It's firm, but it's tender to bite into. It doesn't really crunch. And when the bean pods first start turning yellow, you can pick them and cook them fresh, and they're really very good. And at this stage they're considered dried beans. They're not totally dry, but they're really almost hard. You can bite into them, but they're almost dried up. And this is the stage that I planned for these beans. And at this stage you can either store them as dried beans or you can use them for seed, either way. But at this stage they're not fully cured, so I'm going to show you how we do that. And a little history here. Back in March 17th, you watched me, if you watch my videos, plant this bed of beans. I planted them in a deeply mulched bed, watered them. These were just grocery store beans, Cannellinis, which are kind of like white kidney beans. And I showed you this bed as it was growing. Bush beans are best for the dried bean stage. They're just easier to handle, easier to get to. And as we cure them, you don't want long vines. And if you've watched, you saw me weed them, which is much easier in a mulched bed. But you still need to weed them a little bit, especially we have a lot of grass. And this is the bed today, and I have not picked it at all. If you buy commercial beans, they usually are bush beans that the farmer just lets go until they start drying. And you can see down in here there are a lot of beans. And if we had picked, we would have gotten more beans, but you know, leaving them on and not picking them tells the plant that it's time to start dying. It has reproduced, it's done. And that's fine, because I wanted these to be dry. And you can see that I stopped weeding at some point when they got really bushy and started to die. But to harvest these, I'm going to pull up the whole plant, and we'll hang it for a couple weeks, just like we would onions or garlic. Because if we shell them at this point, the beans would probably mold or mildew. And we could let them fully dry right here in the bed, but I want the bed for something else. And you know, critters will eat on them. The sooner I get them out and hanging, the better. So when we pull them, we're going to hang them, and you can either hang them, you know, individually on string like you do garlic, or you can just put them in a bunch. But we just want to hang them so we can keep them up off the ground, keep any critters from getting them. And we have a little shed that stays not as hot as the rest of our yard. It's in shade all the time, and it's dry. If you have a barn, that would be perfect. If you don't, you could use your basement or your carport. You just want them to stay dry, protect them from the elements, not too hot, and keep them up off the ground. And it only takes probably a week, week and a half. I may leave these out 2 weeks. But that last bit of curing is absolutely essential to get the beans ready for long-term storage. And if we leave them out here in the bed, they're going to get rained on. They're going to have bugs. The temperature's not controlled at all. So if you want these for eating, you want to cure them. If you're doing it for seed, you could probably just leave them in the bed. So after the week to 2 weeks that we've had them hanging, all these lovely beans will just shell so easily. You just kind of crunch them and the shell comes off. My grandpa used to put them in a burlap bag and beat them up a little bit and then just pour them onto a screen, and all the shell part would blow away with the wind. So here we have the beans from this bed, and I planted 2 beds, and you can see down in there are lots of beans. I don't know how much we'll get, 4 or 5 pounds, something like that, but they really didn't take up much space, and they grew really quickly. So we find it worthwhile. We'll do one kind of grocery store bean every year. And here's the bed, and it's got some grass growing in it, but it'll be really easy with a hula hoe just to pull that up. And I'm gonna leave, I'm sure there are some roots down in the ground, and there are some bean leaves here. I'm gonna leave all that because that enriches this bed. This bed's just gonna be very rich in nitrogen, and it's gonna be perfect for a late planting of tomatoes. I'll just get these few weeds out, grass, not weeds, it's weeds if you don't want it, and refresh the mulch by adding a little bit to the top, and then we're going to have a great crop of late tomatoes just because this bed has been in use, and it's been in use with a crop that replenishes. Beans are a great, legumes of any kind are a great crop to replenish the nitrogen and other nutrients in your soil. And I have one lone little bush here that's not ready, so I'm going to leave it out here a little longer. These would not cure properly. Thank you for joining us on Debbie's Back Porch. Please join us again tomorrow, because we'll either be planting or harvesting or cooking or canning, and we would really like to have you here with us.